We can start.
Hi, everyone. So we have a few items on our, I don't know if you can hear me, on our agenda today. And the first I want to welcome everybody that's here. Hello, everyone. It's been a little bit of time since we've got together. I know we're still missing some members of the tribe. I wish they were here, but they're not. So we'll see if they join in. If not, it's being taped so they can send this to them. Someone else is joining in. We'll see who it is.
Joe Smith.
Joe Smith, good.
Hey.
Welcome, Joe.
Hello, hello.
Hello. So we're recording this and we just started. You haven't missed anything yet. So
Okay.
it is July 12th at 2:05 p.m. And this is the Uncas Leap steering group. And so the first thing we want to start with was talk about the approved ARPA funding. Pat McLaughlin and John Salamone are going to speak about that. So I will turn that over to Pat and John.
Well, the additional funds that we requested, the 1.4 million was approved, authorized. So we've got a total budget of 2.5 million now.
So our expectation is to be able to complete the project at this dollar amount. That's our expectation. I mean, originally we were looking at funding sources, if the group remembers, of piecemealing it and how we were going to do it. So now this is exciting, and we're very grateful to John and the council for seeing the value in this project. So John, would you like to talk about it?
I just got on, so what do you want me to talk about exactly?
We were just talking about approving the ARPA funds. The first step is that we were given some ARPA money to do this project, so.
Yes, well, we now have phase 2 money to supplement the first year's money, which was for design and other ancillary things like demolition, et cetera. So we were looking at costs coming in a little higher than first, because obviously after you do this, the analysis of the site work, you can make a better. So we fine-tuned the budget for phase 2, including increasing it a little bit to do that. So Pat has done most of the estimates, but I think we're very comfortable with the number that we have in the now, that we'll be able to complete the project as visioned. And the vision is subject to some, some motion as we move along, but very optimistic that we could get this done for the money that we put in ARP.
Thank you, John. We really appreciate it with the council's work on it. Does anyone have any question about the ARPA funding? We'll just move on if not.
Yeah, I have a question. When are the first bids for this going out?
Probably next winter, in the winter.
In the winter, nothing for the fall, huh?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to add my thanks to John and the council for allocating this funding. It's really transformative to finally have enough funds to get this site underway. So thank you.
Really exciting. So we're going to move on our second item, which is schematic plan design overview, and then a presentation, then talking about the next step, which is a presentation to the city council. It has been changed. It was tentatively going to be July 18th, and now it's August 1st, I believe. So I'm going to turn this over to Michael and Lon to talk about taking that master plan design and actually what changes had to be made based on the topography and other findings in the field. So go ahead, Mike and Lon.
Thanks, Deanna. Well, thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. It's been exciting to be back on the Uncas Leap Heritage Park project. I think we started right around mid-December of last year, once we got the contract signed. And so we've been moving forward with a lot of stuff, and we're just want to go through a really brief overview of what we've been up to and some of the work that we've been doing with city staff to try to further refine the master plan and move into the schematic design, which we consider about 30%. So Lon is also going to do a bulk of the walking through the new plans or the updated plans, but Lon, you want to share your screen since you'll have most of the slides?
Sure. Share screen. Okay.
All right. So if you want to go to the next slide. And just for people that may not know, so our firm is now called SLR Consulting. We are the same people that were with the Uncas Leap master plan as Mylone and McBroom. We've been acquired about 2.5 to 3 years ago. And so now our name is SLR, but same people, same group. Lon and myself have been on the project from the beginning. You may remember Tom Scheel, who was also with us at the meetings. He has since retired from the company. So he may pop up, which he kind of does once in a while. So, but he's not working formally on the project. So just to really briefly bring you up to date on some of the work that we've been done under this new contract. So we've gone back out and had our survey technicians do an update to the field survey. If you recall, on the master plan phase, we did a partial survey of the site, and it did not include full topo information for the whole site. So we've updated that information. Also, obviously, some of the work that's been done out there since the master plan, including the demolition or partial demolition of the stone mill, the regrading and moving of earth around the site. A lot of the elevations and things have changed. And so that was really a necessity to get that information and have it really accurate. So we have a new update for the survey. It also includes the stair and trail connection up to Sachem Street, which we'll also be getting into as part of this project. We've had our geotechnical engineers on site performed borings to gain information in terms of what's underneath the soil or the surface out there. Again, we had some limited borings in the first phase for the master plan, so these were a little bit more targeted because we had a better idea of where some of the improvements were going to land. So things such as stairs, the amphitheater, the building for the restroom, getting a better idea of what's underground and what we're going to need to do to design footings, foundations, anything that's really structural and being supported. Even sidewalk cross sections, it's really helpful to know what's underneath there. Related to that, we also updated the environmental, which we did a full phase 1, 2, and 3 in the master plan efforts due to a good amount of work that's occurred on site, the demolition of the art form building, this partial demolition of the stone mill, all the regrading. There has been soils that have moved and kind of shifted on site. So we did an update in terms of a few testing locations. In general, findings were similar to the master plan, but unfortunately, with the activity that's happening on the site, there has been some spreading of the soils. So most likely, most of the site was already intermingled with contaminated soils, but we did find a few other hot spots. So we're going to have to really be cognizant of that as we move along with the design and how we're dealing with soils in terms of exporting off-site, either capping on-site. And so that really is going to play a major role in some of the costs for the project that unfortunately you don't really see much benefit from, visually when you're out there. And then we're moving into right now is really refining the master plan, taking that plan. We've been on site twice, talking about the plan and where things should go and making updates to it, and then refining it into that 30% schematic design, which I mentioned. And we'll walk through that in a little more detail. If you want to go to the next slide, Lon. So I just want, so when we do these sorts of projects, whether we've prepared the master plan or somebody else has, it's always helpful to go back and look at it. And as we're continually looking at the design of the site, we're constantly thinking back at that kind of our mission statement when we had the master plan. And one of the key things I just wanted to bring up at this point was really the last bullet point was, not to over design the site. It's a small site. We know there's a lot of things going on in terms of the history of the site, the remnants that are on the site, the constraints that we have in terms of grades and the drops off to the dam and the gorge. The site, we already know it has a lot of great interest, aesthetic. It's, it's already a beautiful place. So we're trying, really hard. We don't want to over design it and add too many elements that start to detract and look too constrained or pushed into spots that we don't really want. So I just wanted to bring this back up really briefly, just to know that we always are kind of going back to that consensus that we had when we did the master plan to make sure we're staying on track. If you want to go to the next one, Lon. And then just to refresh your memory, I'm sure you're all familiar with the master plan from 2018. As we go through the next, I forget, maybe it's 10 or so slides, which we'll do quickly. This was the plan at the time in 2018. Things have changed, have been updated. Obviously, grades and elevations have changed. The parking lot in the old building lot has been built. So there was different constraints and things need to be malleable as we're working through this design. So what has been great is we've been working back and forth with city staff to really try to understand what needs to be massaged and what into what area, and things have to shift and what decisions need to be made. So we're certainly still very early in the design at this 30% mark. And that's where the committee's input is really crucial. And then as we move forward, looking into material selections and really nailing down the detailed design, again, your input will be very important to that process. So with that, I'll let Lon kind of walk us through just the plan in some more detail.
Okay. I'm going to talk about the major changes to the master plan. Originally, we have an accessible path, go through the lawn to the pedestrian bridge, and another accessible access to the Yantic Street. And at this point, we have a stair access to the park. In the schematic design, we have a new layout to this area. In the area B, we remove all the trail access as well as the kayak landing. We have a new location for the cantilevered overlook in the area. In the area C, in a master plan, we proposed a accessible path from parking through the building to the storage circle, but the renovated stone mill building has changed the topography of the site. This layout does not work anymore, so we propose a new configuration of accessible route, as well as we designed the interior of the building to make the space work better. So here is the schematic design. First, we remove the walk through the lawn. The new parking lot set the grading different. If we want to make the path accessible, we have to make this walkway very long. Instead of doing that, we found the sidewalk is in a pretty good condition, as you can see from the image, and the slope is about 5%. So now we are using the existing sidewalk to connect the parking lot to the park. And here is the stair access to a bridge. We kept as it is from the master plan. This image shows the existing fork shape, and the proposed stair will be aligned to the bridge. From this junction, we have another accessible route to the Yantic Street, and we also propose to have a little picnic destinations at the lawn area because of the great view it provides to the train track and the upper fall. So this lawn is pretty flat and it's the ideal location to have a picnic area. And the upper view, the upper image, you can see it provides a beautiful view, and we just need to clear some of the trees to open the views. In the master plan, originally we have a stair access from this point over the fall to the park. We found it is structurally challenging, so we moved the access point to this location to have an elevated stair structure. And in the middle, we'll have a overlook bump out just to take advantage of the high point and the great view. This picture shows the approximate location of the proposed stair, and this picture shows the existing condition looks more promising. Now we move to the park. The path was laid out as almost as same as from the master plan. The only changes are we tweak the location of the two overlook decks. One will be overlooking the Yantic Fall, and another one will be on above the existing concrete foundation to overlook the Yantic River. This image shows the one near the fall, and this is the one overlook the Yantic River. And of course, we will have to clear some of the trees and the shrubs. Move to the street. We kept the bus pull-off lane as it is. Instead of doing 3 on-street parking from master plan, we proposed 4 parkings with 2 accessible spaces. This image shows where the pull-off and on-street parking will be. And also we moved the parking 5 feet away from the Yantic Street just to make the grading work. Like I mentioned, originally there was an accessible route from the parking to the stone mill building and back to the storage circle. However, the access point has been changed. There is a 7 feet elevation change from parking to the stone mill building. So now we put a stair access to the building. And also we want to make it accessible to the storage circle and the building. So we propose to have this long loop all the way down to the storage circle and connect to the existing concrete slab to make that as an accessible route and then get to the building. The concrete slab will be also featured with the informational signage to tell the history of the site. There was a pathway with steps from parking to the storage circle in the master plan. And now with all the stairs and the walls, we feel it's too crowded to put another path in this section. So we decide to remove that sidewalk. We put the steps between the stone seatings and make the lawn areas slope gentle. So we just encourage people to have a direct access through the lawn to the amphitheater and to the stone mill building. Inside of the stone mill building, we put fence to keep people away from walls and support structures. This is the existing concrete slab that was done during renovations. We will extend that concrete to a certain point to make the interior space as an exhibition room for daily visitors and the special events. The restroom will be removed in the middle of the site just to be accessible from both sides of the park. And we put a kiosk / informational circle in this junction with 3 flag posts just to use as a welcome point to the park. And Mike, you're muted.
You could just go back 1 slide real quick. Okay, so just to recap, because there's a lot of information there. Really, essentially, the changes that have happened, and I guess you can't see my cursor as I'm pointing at things. Lon, if you could just point from the parking lot down to the blue circle, the main parking lot off to the left, yeah, there. So essentially, the sidewalk that was removed from the corner of the parking lot there, that would have gone down the slope and curved through that the blue circle that's shown there. We've removed that due to, 1, the length that was needed, and 2, the fact that, as Lon said, the existing condition of the sidewalk along Yantic was in good condition, and really the grade wasn't that bad. So public right-of-way code allows an accessible route to follow the path of a street or the grade of a street. So it's still considered an accessible route, even though it's slightly over 5%. But it really seemed to us to really make sense not to try to convolute this area with an additional walk that really, with the length of it, pushed you so far out of the way, it didn't seem convenient. And then that was the similar thought we had down at the story circle, where we had individual stone steps coming from the handicap accessible parking down, from there down to the circle itself. So the accessible route, while it has to go out and around and down to the story circle, again, we think this just made more sense to simplify the area. We also think, we're going to add a little bit of benefit of reducing some costs in terms of all the hardscape that's on site. And then the interior, kind of what we've been calling like almost like the exhibit room inside the structure itself. During the master plan, if you remember, we actually had that front of the building roofed. So the fact that there is no roof now to the remnant building, that sort of changed the thought process, and the internal skeleton structure that's in there now does create somewhat of a hazard in terms of potential climbability, and as well as your head height walking through those angled wood structures. We have to make sure we're getting people underneath there in an area that's at least 8 feet clear. So the red box that you see is kind of a defined, what we're saying as an exhibit room, where you could take advantage of the more open space inside that structure that doesn't have as much bracing. We'll have to regrade some of that and put in the concrete slab. And the fencing will keep people away. If you've been in the building or been down to look at it from the outside, the walls of the building you can still pick out. There's stone in there. There's yeah, good. Thanks, Lon. There's debris that kind of is sloughing off at times from those walls. So we're trying to keep people away from the edge to keep them safe, and as well as protect the structure itself from, people's hands and things. It's a kind of a tempting texture to look at and kind of want to take a stone out of. So we're trying to avoid that. So if you want to go to the next slide. So our next steps, really, again, this is the 30% design, still a ways to go. What we would like to do next is really cut critical cross sections through the site. And if you remember, we did this during the master plan to get a better idea of elevations and relationships of different improvements. That's going to tell a lot, I think, of the story of where things sit and where final grades will be. As I mentioned earlier, the materials, that's really when we start to get into some of the fine details, and that's where this group's input is really going to be important, so that we make sure that we're picking materials that are durable, that reflect Norwich, that really set a tone for the park itself, and really show the quality and the thought and everything that's going into this site. As we're doing that, we have to obviously develop these construction estimates. So we've been talking a little bit about budget. 2.5 million is a really great number to have. The concerns we have, again, are the soils on site, because that number does sometimes jump up quickly when you're exporting off soil, and that fact of dealing with contaminated soils can be a good amount of a budget. So we're going to have to just look at that and really pay attention to that. And our next kind of major goal is to have our regulatory submissions within the next few months. So there's a lot happening now that we kind of got our arms around really what's happening on the ground in terms of the work that's been done and the soil that's been moved out there. And we're starting to define all the walks and where things will land. That really will let us kind of go much faster into these next steps. So we're happy to discuss any specific area on site or the plan in general, if you have any questions.
Mike, I have a question. Can you explain a little bit about the accessibility to the lower? I know you did a little bit, but you talked about we talked about the field, the bridging that needs to happen on that lower end of the mill to get to the story circle. Can you speak about that bridging area?
Lon, you want to zoom in or go to the slide with the zoomed in view of that area? Yeah, here we go. Okay, so as you can see, so all the lines with the kind of oval labels, those are contour lines. And so that's indicating the elevation change that we're dealing with. So when you're up at the accessible parking area, as Lon mentioned, you're 7 feet plus or minus above the slab in the stone mill. So that's a good amount of grade change and not a huge distance. So what we're looking to do is we're putting people on an accessible route, the green dashed line that's going out and around the story circle to the left takes you down, and it's dropping at 4.5%. So it's a nice gentle grade. It's below 5%. So we don't need handrails. So that'll drop you down. And when you get to the junction, yep, there, where you can enter into the story circle, you can also cross a ramped section of walk or bridge that's going to take you down to the slab in front of the stone mill. So that section is bridging at 8%. So we would need handrails there. We think it actually could be a really cool structure. Doesn't need to be anything elaborate, but just nice materials and nice finishes, and it'll just add a little bit more to the site feel. And the reason that's dropping so fairly quickly at 8% is because of the elevation of the stone mill versus where we kind of want the story circle to sit a little bit proud of the stone mill itself. So the views we can take advantage of, and the accessibility from above at the parking and sidewalks are kind of drive that. So the stone story circle is at 50, elevation 50. We're down at about 47.5, 47 at the stone mill. The contours are all running down towards the stone mill building. So all the water on site, which is currently what's happening, you could see in the picture to the right, any water that's hitting those hillsides are still running kind of down towards the stone mill. So this also allows us to kind of create a swale prior to the stone slab. Yeah, right there, so that we can capture the water before it gets to the stone mill, and hopefully, alleviate any potential issues with undermining, with just the water getting into the the stonework of the stone mill, and it'll just create an area that'll be more maintainable, less issues with water, just getting into the stone mill itself. And I think we can make this, really a feature that fits in with the overall theme of the site. It's almost like, you're crossing this bridge over from the history that we'll be highlighting in the story circle over to the stone mill. So I think we could kind of play that as part of the theme of the site in terms of, what are we highlighting in the story circle in terms of any interpretive signage, symbolization, and then, over at the stone mill. So I think it works out in terms of the overall vision. I think it really fits in with that. Did that address your question, Deanna? Oh, you're muted.
I just wanted everyone to understand what we were doing here, and with that ramping, so the handicap accessibility.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then,
explaining it.
so and I think another point we might have missed is the story circle itself, where those 2 pink arrows are showing, instead of having external kind of stepping stone stairs off to the side, in this scenario, we're showing them, integrated into the amphitheater style seating of the story circle. So this way, this is one of the reasons we could kind of get rid of that one sidewalk that was on the stone mill side of the design in the master plan. So when you're up above the story circle, you actually could just filter your way in through the lawn space and then down those 3 steps, and then make your way just like a typical kind of amphitheater seating and stair would work.
Mike, if I could just make one little comment about maybe on the handicap parking spaces, and maybe you want to move those to the left side so that they're, that slightly shortens, they're closer to the high point, and it might slightly shorten that route then down, and it gets them a little closer to the bathroom too.
Yep. We could look. I think it probably would work there. The grading of those spaces is tight. Yeah, it's really the street grade and the parking grades are really tight.
Okay.
So we can certainly look at that, and I think we
Maybe.
did at one point.
Now that
but
you say that again, maybe that was something you had pointed out on this when we were walking it, that
yeah,
because of the grade of the road, they might work better over there possibly, but that, yeah, okay.
yeah, it gave us, I think, a little, the transition coming around the curve of the bus kind of event space, having that curbed, and being able to kick them down a little further. I think that helped us, but we can look at that again just to make sure.
And Mike, can you go, I mean, there's gonna be other people have questions, but could you, and I want to give everyone an opportunity to ask questions. Can you show us where the original location for the bathroom was and then compared to where it is now? I think that became such a topic during our discussions of the site with the neighbors and things. So if we can kind of talk about that.
Yep. Yeah, so as long as showing there, originally we had it down near the parking spaces. And the city brought up a good point of, well, it's right across from the neighboring houses that are across the street on Yantic Street. So their view right into that space, is going to be a structure that they're not used to seeing. It's not necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing thing. I mean, we're going to do a nice building. It's going to have a nice finish to it and everything, but in the end, it is a restroom. So we made the decision to try to, as much as we could, push it to the left of the image here to the west and try to align it as best we could without being right in front of any of the residential properties there. So if you look at the plan now, it's actually in the center of the site, which again, I think kind of helps bridge each side of the site equally. So if you're entering from up above, from the parking area there, it's not such a long walk. And then at the accessible and other 2 parking spaces there, it's very close.
And visually, Mike, will it be less visual for those houses because it's in a lower spot on the site, correct?
That'll help as well. Yeah. So the site itself is, if you're up on Yantic, you're much higher than that structure. So I don't think you'll really see it at all in those
Down on it,
buildings.
basically, when you're on the road, you're looking down on it when you're walking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then we'll have some, screening, some vegetation along that hillside, which has some locust trees now. We'll be looking to kind of bolster that.
So do you mind if I go around and ask if there's questions on the plan?
No.
All right, so I'll open it up for questions. Joe, do you have any questions?
I'm thinking about the exhibit space. What sort of thing are we going to have? Revolving exhibit? Is it going to be a permanent exhibit? Who's going to decide what goes in there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's something that this group should definitely discuss. When we were out there on the site, we were kind of just trying to figure out, okay, what's the spatial area? We didn't really nail down the exact exhibit type stuff. I mean, we were throwing all kinds of things out there in terms of lighting, just to give it a real nice effect, projections up onto some of the walls itself. But yeah, we talked about signage. So having this barrier kind of fence, so you're not getting to the walls and the skeletal structure, you could certainly, like the National Park Service, you could have 45-degree angled signage built in to those railings, so that as you're walking around, you can have a few areas to stop and look at images and text. So I think that again is still up in the air. We can certainly work through that.
While we're talking about signage, I drove by today to see what things look like, and the sign is still up that says Indian Leap. So that's an issue that's down the road, but I think that sign either has to be taken out or changed or something. It's an old state park sign.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll be, as we get into the detailed design, the signage is definitely an important kind of overall package that I think we're going to have to, really dig into and figure out what's the best location for, your real kind of identifying entry sign. And then where do we go with any kind of wayfinding signage that kind of points you in the different directions we want people to understand, all the different connections that this site has. So we haven't really gotten there yet. We started to think about it a little bit, and I know the master plan, we talked about some interpretive areas. But I
Mhm.
think that's going to be one of the layers of the detailed design that's going to really kind of set the site off, and that's going to be kind of like the icing on top of the cake.
So I think the hope is that the Mohegan Tribe will help us develop the content for the signage as well.
Oh, yeah.
You know, in the past, the Historical Society worked with Stephanie and others with the Uncas Sleep Trail, and wanting to, you know, continue that same partnership with, maybe it's Melissa and Beth, or whoever is the most appropriate person from the tribe to work on that verbiage and develop the content. So I think that's a, you know, down the road discussion, but wanting to, you know, at least plant the seed now so we think about it for later.
Yeah, I mean, and getting any of those topics, or, you know, certain historical images, photographs, whatever it may be, if that's discussion starts, and, you know, that can help inspire us in terms of materials and color selections and things like that. So whenever you want to start those discussions, that certainly would help.
Okay.
Bill Block, do you have any comments?
No, no further questions. It's been so long since we met. I lost the grasp of just how far along the design had gone. And now I am, you know, from listening to everyone today, I can see there's still a good ways to go. So I'll just wait and see.
Okay. So anyone else that want to make any comments today? So the next step, I think, is going to be the presentation to the council. So are we expecting, how long will that be? A half hour, an hour? Pat and Mike, what was that decision?
Well,
We
we've
can
got
make
a
it as
50
long as you want.
We have a 50-minute time slot.
50?
Okay.
6:30 beginning and 7:20 or thereabouts ending.
Okay. So
Yeah, so we were hoping 20, you know, we try to keep it 20 minutes, 30 minutes max, but we'll definitely shoot for 20, so we're not, you know, boring people.
okay, so if that's the case, maybe Pat, they don't have to do it till 6:30.
That's what time I said, 6:30 to 7:20.
Oh, but I'm saying, but maybe if the meeting doesn't start till 7:30 and they only have 30 minutes that they really
Well-
want to do a presentation, maybe we start at 7.
Well, it's already published, but
Oh, they did, they already published it.
yes, I mean, you can do like today's, for instance, we've been, you know, this has been 40 minutes now so far. So I'm
Right.
sure you're going to have more questions from some of the council members than now, you know, like than we had today. So I
Okay.
think, you know, that time frame is good. If it ends at 7:10 and there's a 20-minute break, then that's okay too, you know. But I don't want it to be too rushed.
Okay, that sounds great. So we're gonna, so August 1st, and I'll send out a reminder of that announcement to all the people on this committee so that they can go if they want and comment as well. I don't think there's any comment time during this. This is really just a presentation, correct?
I believe so. Yeah, the council, I think, can ask questions,
Mhm.
you know.
So then
Dan, a quick question. Sorry, I have a quick question. Do you want me to like invite Shippo to the presentation or not? I'm just throwing that out there as a question.
I don't think they need to come to the presentation. We can share the 30% design plans with them.
Okay, that's fine. I just
I mean,
wanted
if
to,
they want to come, it's a public meeting, you know.
well, I didn't know if you wanted me to like inform them that this is
Well, I
happening.
wouldn't make it a big, you know, I don't know. I would just give them the 30% plans and, you know,
Okay,
and let them know that we are having a public informational meeting.
okay, sounds good.
so that
I'm sorry, I missed something. What day is the hearing?
August, it's not it's a public informational, August 1st.
August 1st?
Yep.
Yeah, it's before the city council meeting, so it's at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you.
So then the next item on here is the project schedule, which Brian was going to go to, but I guess Patrick's going to do it. So Pat, do you want to talk
I
about?
put it together, so I guess I could.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I mean, right now, as Mike said, they've just finished the schematic design and they're going to be moving into the design development phase for the next couple months. Then we hope to do the regulatory permits in the August to October timeframe. And And then they're gonna work on construction documents from November to January. They'll also be doing some work, of course, during the permitting process, but you don't want to go to a final point until you've gotten all the regulatory permit issues addressed.
Yep.
And then we hope to have the bid phase in February. With the construction, starting basically April 1st.
You're muted, Deanna.
Sorry about that. I always unmute myself because I unmute myself, so I'm not talking during everybody else. So Pat, if it starts construction April of 2023, how long do we think the construction will actually take? Is it a year project? How long is the construction of this?
Oh, it's a full construction season, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say at least.
Pretty much. I mean, it might be slightly less, but I think, right, we had said possibly 7 months. 6 months, maybe, if you're,
So the beginning of 2024, it should be done.
Well, it should be done in the fall of 2023, ideally,
Okay.
November.
Okay, so yeah, late November, late fall. Okay, that's perfect. John, do you have any questions about that time frame for us from the ARP standpoint? You're on mute too.
That's reasonable to me.
Just in time for Walktober. Woohoo.
Yeah, let's hope that'll be perfect. That's the goal. That's the goal, October. So,
Okay.
so going on to events, the next item we had was kickoff events. And I know months and months ago, probably God, might have been a year ago now, we talked about being excited. This was before even ARPA funding, about doing some kind of kickoff event, getting moving on things. Where do we stand with that as a committee, and how comfortable are you doing that? And where do you think that's appropriate to do? Is the kickoff event when we put shovels in the ground? Is the kickoff event before that? And I'd like to get also not only information from this committee, but I would really like Lon and Mike's input as well, because they, designers and what they've done in other communities. So let's start with Lon and Mike, and then we'll go to the committee.
Okay. It's kind of been a mixed bag, I'd say, in different parks that I've done I would say it's probably a little more skewed to shovels in the ground, having kind of a ceremony at that time. Because I think that gets the more, people are more excited at that point because something's actually going to happen. Whereas when we've done it earlier in the process, it seems like you don't get as good a turnout, and people kind of are like, well, nothing's actually getting built right now, so I'm not going to, kind of come to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Joe, do you think that that's the better idea? And do you think the
Yes,
tribe would
yeah.
have involvement at that point and really want to, show their involvement?
Absolutely. You give the reporters something to, grab onto. They can run a picture in the bulletin, and, just to make it more, when it's a little closer into being real, I think that's best.
Great. So is everybody in agreement? We'll do a kickoff event and really publicize it at the time of shovels in the ground after the bid's been awarded and we have a contractor.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And the last item in our discussion is other items. So does anyone want to bring anything up that was not talked about today that's on their minds regarding the Uncas property or the project?
I guess I have a quick question regarding walking tours, because we do have a Walktober tour planned for October 1st this year with Beth Regan leading the tour with Bill Champagne. And I just wanted to make sure that was okay to do. We obviously will have people parking off site and not on site like they used to, but just wanted to get a sense from the group if that was something that was acceptable to keep moving forward. We thought it'd be fun to build the momentum of say, hey, this is the history of the site and this is the future plans of the site. And the tour is always really popular. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Any safety concerns, Pat, with having a group out there on the site during this point?
We'd be on the sidewalk, not on the site.
Oh, so you wouldn't go into the site at all?
Well, that's a public space. I mean, there's no parts of the sidewalk that are blocked off, so.
Okay, as long as you weren't gonna go into the site and walk into the mill building and that kind of stuff then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a key unless Pat wants to give me a key for the
Yeah,
Saturday, but.
Well, actually,
But I
you saw
drove
how
by today,
Brian,
it does not look inviting
Yeah.
I don't see how you could get in there.
you saw how Brian gets in, so you don't necessarily need a key.
This is true. This is true. I just need a knife. Yeah, I mean, we could just stick to like the grassy area near Upper Falls and the railroad tracks. Like, I mean, we can figure it out. I just wanted to pose the question to the group in general, so.
Is the group happy with the design that it's been, the changes and everything overall? I mean, I guess that's my question under other items. We didn't really talk about that. I mean, there is some slight changes. Overall, the master plan is pretty consistent. We have the overlooks, we have the story circle, the elements of the walking trails, the stairs to get into the site. A little bit of changes, the bathroom location and the use of, well, the use of the mill building was always going to be potentially an event type of space, but it was a ramped building on the inside, and kind of almost a dirt ramped building, or so that you could get to the lower level, but we did eliminate that and have actually more, I think it's almost more usable space now the way it is. What is Joe and Bill Block, you're on the committee, what are you thinking?
I think the changes that I've seen, one, they're minor, and two, they seem quite positive. And, things like that are always going to happen as a project like this goes forward. It won't be the exact same as the beginning, so works for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very good job. I'm encouraged by it. It's good.
Deanna, I might say, instead of calling them changes, it's more like the evolution of the site.
It is really the evolution of the site, I mean, well, some of the changes, I would say it's changes that we decided not to fill inside the footprint of the mill building, but that was also to alleviate pressure on those walls, correct?
Yeah.
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 So, because if we had filled that with more material, that's putting pressure on those exterior walls. So, yeah, so it is really evolution. And I think we can talk about that at that meeting with the council. So. Any other items? If not, we would be finished for the day.
I do have one comment. Are we going to put a construction sign out there to say, check back in October 23 or something, or is it too complicated to do that? I don't
We
mean
could
to have, something like that.
We could probably come up with something, because we had a sign out there before when the last, because it was grant funds, so it was we had a sign out there. We could probably make a alternative sign of our own and put something up there to help build that anticipation and everything too, and just let them know something's happening.
Yeah, let's pitch that sign that Joe talked about too, if we can.
Yeah.
Don't need to keep that up there at this point.
Okay.
I understand what he's
Construction
saying.
in the old days, it'd say, watch this space.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Coming soon.
Yeah, you would have holes in the construction fence or something, right?
Yeah, maybe it could go up around the time of the city council hearing, so people get excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to get people that are going to be curiosity seekers, which is good. That's what you want to generate. And putting something on Facebook will be good. We should probably put this preliminary plan on the city's webpage or.
Yeah. The other question is, I've been kind of managing the Uncas Leap Heritage Facebook page. I'm happy to do that. I didn't know if that was appropriate for me to be managing it, but I have been. So, to my city friends, I don't know what you want me to do since it's a city site. I'll do whatever makes the most sense.
I don't have a problem with
Good
that.
work.
Okay.
And you were going to be working on the historical content as part of this program anyways, Regan, if I'm correct. That
Yeah.
was part of your working with Mike and Lon to give that those historic elements and working with the tribe. You were kind of the bridge in coming up with some of the design elements. So for the signage and things. So, okay, great.
Cool.
So
Well, this is very exciting. Very exciting.
It's really exciting. So if there's no more questions, we will see you on August 1st. We're going to try to promote it as much as possible up on Facebook, John. We'll have Jackie put something up as a reminder for that public meeting about it. It'll just be fun. It'll be really good.
Yeah, it should be a good press coverage then. Usually they'll cover something when it's in a council agenda. So that'll be a good way of introducing it to the general public.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you all and have a
All right.
great
Okay.
Good
afternoon.
to
See you
see
soon.
everyone.
You all.
Thank you.
Good to
Thank
see you.
you.